There is a new issue facing the United States, and it involves Medicare. Top lawmakers in Congress are interested in making concessions in order to pass several important government funding bills. It appears that Medicare spending may be the first thing to be decreased over time. Decades ago, the surge in Medicare spending dominated the federal budget, but now Medicare spending per beneficiary has plateaued. The trend may appear somewhat concealed due to simultaneous growth, but according to a health policy analyst at Harvard, this Affordable Care Act without a doubt is the most important thing that happened in the federal budget in the last 20 years. Most of the savings cannot be attributed to any obvious political shift, but in a recent letter to the Senate Budget Committee, economists at the Congressional Budget Office described the huge reductions in its Medicare forecast between 2010 and 2020. Most of these reductions came from a category the budget calls technical adjustments, which it uses to describe changes to public health and the practices of medicine itself. If Medicare spending had grown the way it had for much of its history, federal spending would actually have been $39 trillion, and deficits would have been more than a quarter large. The difference is that more than could be saved by raising the eligibility age for Social Security or converting Medicaid into a bulk grant. Medicare spending is likely to disappear as a concern for the budget and policymakers, but analysts are worrying about the trend and an aberration in that some new development will return to Medicare. Even Joe Biden has released the first 10 prescriptions that Medicare will target for price cuts, and according to the government, people on this paid a total of $3 billion in out-of-pocket costs. But now
much of the technology and machinery that is used to make these chips was designed and produced in the United States. And by uniting our skills and our technological know-how, it allows the production of chips that are critical to both our countries and are essential sectors of our global economy.
There is a ton of news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits that you have to know, folks, so continue watching this video. You definitely don't want to miss out on this. Now, first of all, Americans are finally receiving their tax refund checks from the federal government, and this could mean several big, huge changes. Tax refund represents a source of joy for millions of households, and this year the average check is about $3 grand. Now, according to latest data, refunds are also used to pay down bills, start an emergency fund, or splurge on something special. Refund checks may be pleasant to receive, but they aren't free money from the government. Instead, they represent reimbursements from the IRS for taxes that workers overpaid throughout the year. Last year, that amounted to $360 billion in overpaid income, with 2 in 3 taxpayers receiving a check from the IRS. And because of the financial stakes, tax professionals and economists have engaged in a long-running debate about whether it's financially wise to get a tax refund or to have a close to a net zero tax return and get nothing back from the IRS. On one side of the debate, many experts cautioned that tax refunds represent interest-free loans that taxpayers give to the federal government. But on the flip side, other financial professionals say it may be better for some taxpayers to receive a refund because it essentially provides an enforced savings plan, which can be helpful for people who have trouble saving money. And according to experts surveyed by CBS News, it's a financially wise choice to get your money in your paycheck throughout the year. As of February 24th, the average tax refund was $3 grand. That is a $3,000 interest-free loan that you are giving to the government. That is about $250 a month extra that you could add to your budget. That's similar to the monthly payments that many families with children received in 2021. This was money that was credited with reducing poverty and helping families afford childcare, transportation, and much more. Aside from using that money for household expenses, taxpayers could use that extra $250 to save for retirement. That's a big issue given that there's a massive retirement gap in the U.S., because with most Americans having far less than they'll need for a comfortable retirement. Other experts say that if you need the money on a short-term basis, sock it away in a high-interest savings account, which exceeds 4%. Now, by comparison, the IRS doesn't pay interest on tax refunds, which means you could be missing out on some extra money through a high-yield savings account or their investment vehicles. Almost half of Americans say they plan to receive their refund checks, and sometimes it's impossible to determine whether you get a tax refund. There are several governors and everybody that want to create state tax credits that provide low-income households with a little bit of cash this year. So if you're a person with low income, you could be getting stimulus, because Vermont's child tax credit provides $1,000 annually per child under 6 to families with adjusted gross incomes of up to $125 grand. And now families with low or no earnings can receive its full value. Families earning between $125 and $175 receive a partial credit. In the state of New York, for instance, anti-poverty activists called on the state to increase funding for the Empire State Child Tax Credit. This current child tax credit provides a minimum of $100 and a maximum of $330 for children between the ages of 4 and 16. advocates do say that it'll help people out.
Well above the state's current minimum of $15.50 an hour. CNBC's Kate Rogers live in San Francisco. This would be a big win for fast food workers, looks like.
That's right, Chap. Advocates say the bill's passing is a major win for workers that will improve the industry's conditions in a meaningful and sweeping manner if signed into law. It comes at a time when organized labor has been successful across the food sector, from Starbucks to Chipotle and Trader Joe's. Fast food chains are notoriously difficult to organize due to high turnover and franchisee ownership.
Now, according to officials in San Antonio, Texas, there will be considered a proposal to use $50 million of revenue from the city-owned utility to provide rebates to customers. Energy bills have soared for people in Texas in recent months, as record-breaking heat forced them to use more electric. As a result, the city's revenue from CPS Energy is expected to be $75 million higher than expected. The city manager, Eric Walsh, said the city collects 13% of revenue that the utility brings in. The credit will be based on the customer's July bill, with the proposal suggesting the credit reduced from the future bill should be around 13% of what was paid in July. Walsh said the average bill for residential customers rose to $230 in July, meaning they could expect a rebate of about $31. Walsh also told reporters, "This is not going to wipe away anybody's outstanding balances. It's not going to pay anybody's complete utility bill. It is the city as the owner of CPS, recognizing the extraordinary position that everyone finds themselves in and doing our part." Now, Illinois representatives have also co-sponsored a bill to give Americans with monthly rebate checks, help them defray the escalating cost of gas, with a windfall profit tax being levied against oil companies. According to the Stop Gas Price Gouging Tax and Rebate Act, introduced by Peter DeFazio, single Americans making less than $75,000 annually, or those filing jointly, will be eligible for the monthly, advanced, and refundable rebate checks. Representative Underwood said in a statement, "Every day I hear from my constituents about how rising prices are impacting their quality of life. They deserve relief, which is why I helped introduce the legislation to put money into the pockets of families, to help them afford groceries and energy costs, while also holding greedy oil companies and gas companies accountable." Biden has already confirmed that he is considering a tax holiday. In an interview on ABC News, the Treasury Secretary expressed an openness to a federal gas tax to give motorists some relief.
And power lines, and provide hundreds of other services that can't be done in the comfort of an air-conditioned building. These workers need and deserve protection from the impacts of dangerous heat. That's why we're out here today. We all know that climate change is making heat waves hotter and more common. The past 8 years have been the hottest since global record keeping began. And heat wave season has been getting longer, stretching into early spring and late fall. Scientists expect these longer and hotter heat waves to continue. And our window of opportunity to avoid the worst impacts of the climate crisis is quickly closing. That's why NRDC and our elected leaders